Hey everybody, Geoff Manchester here. Today we're going to be exploring and playing with the lovely new, well I shouldn't say lovely, the dark new synth from Wide Blue Sound called Eclipse. Now Eclipse is the, I guess, darker, twisted, younger cousin of Orbit, which was their first synth. It shares a lot of the same stuff that made Orbit so great, namely the interface, the sequencers, the effects, but it has loads of new sound sources, 101 core sounds available, the company says, and it has a much darker timbre and character than Orbit, which is really cool. So if you have Orbit and you have Eclipse, you have, sort of light and dark, great tools for sound design. Instead of making a video where I just sort of explain what this thing does, which a lot of people seem to do the day of, they download the software and then they just go through the manual and make a video. Let's make a song. So you can actually hear what Eclipse can do, and you can decide if it's worth bringing into your tool belt, your arsenal. So that's what I did. I've got Eclipse set up here, and I have about 13 or 14 instances of Eclipse set up, along with some other instruments. There we go. A lot of stuff, right? So we can really hear, we can really put this synth through its paces and hear what it can do. So without further ado, here's a little track that I wrote. So that's a little brief example of what Eclipse can do. The thing I like about Eclipse is that it has a lot of, it's very tweakable, but also if you just sort of slam your fingers down on a triad on the keyboard, the sounds really evolve kind of infinitely. They just go on, and it's perfect for for a lot of modern sort of cinematic scoring and stuff like that. So that's why I really like it. It's very soundscapey and evolving. And at first I have to say I was really intimidated by this, very elegantly made GUI. But now that I've had a couple days to play with it, it's really sort of opened itself up to a lot of experimentation and stuff. So I really like it. Enough about what I think about this thing. Let's just explain what's happening here on the first page. So we're going to go to the first instance of Eclipse. And if I go to the first one here, I have a track called Chop. Now, that's because if we go into our snapshots, we can see that this whole instrument is really broken up between 4 categories: chop, flow, FX, and pulse. What do these things do? What do they all do? So we have the moons at the very top, and this toggles on and off these sound sources. I think they have something like 3 hours worth of recorded material that they've sliced up into these sound sources. We can see they're separated into Asylum, Complex, and Simple at the top, and we can toggle them on and off by switching that. We have our gain, pan, tune, cut, and resolution. These also, these affect the sound of the sound source. And then we have a filter type here, which is really cool. At the very bottom here, we have our engines, so pulse, chop, and flow. So right now I have this switched on to chop, and I can see that because it's grayed out. And if I play it for you in solo, you can hear what chop sounds like. Okay, so it's almost like a stagnated, rhythmic, bunch of slices of sound. It's sort of stuttered. If we go, I can just change the tone of this sound by going into pulse, and pulse is more a rhythmic pattern. And what they say in the manual is that it starts each channel at full volume and then fades it down like a traditional percussion sound. oscillating, going up and down and up and down and up and down through each channel. And flow is more like a pad, I think. So flow is a cascading crossfade between all the channels. So you can hear that's much more even, much more smooth. So we have some other things here. Rate, which sets the time for evolving through all 4 channels. We have attack and release, blah, blah, blah. You guys know all this stuff. There's some really cool features up here, though. Clone, and clone duplicates the settings of channel 1, the furthest left here, across all the other channels if you just want to start out with a very simple sound. Great for sort of, you're beginning a new composition and you just want something very, very simple. As I said before, these sounds sort of oscillate and change in a very organic sort of way. So if you want something that's a bit more reliable and simple, you can just clone this sound across all the other channels. Randomize, this just randomizes all the features and you come up with some great new sound ideas. And then you have waves. I'm reading from the manual now. This shifts the current sound selected in all 4 orbits to the previous or next to in the list. So it's useful if you want some of the sounds to match, maybe 1 and 2, but you want to quickly audition new sounds in the same category they're currently in. I have, of course, just a preset here. It's from the Chop menu, I believe. Yeah, it's Chop World Map. So I just went with one sound source and I'm like, I'm just going to see where this goes. I loved it and I kept it. Now, that's one tab. We have the other tab, which is effects. So we can further distort and really manipulate and mangle this sound with scream, distort, phaser, convolve, delay, and warmth. Convolve is just convolution reverb. They have some really cool impulse responses that they've collected. You can set the the wet dry, all that stuff. Scream and distortion and warmth, I think, is probably just a saturation kind of tube saturation effect. And then we have the sequencer. And if people have used Orbit before, they're going to be familiar with this. This is really cool. Basically, we have 4 sequencers that can affect all kinds of parameters. We can write in some automation with our mouse, like this. And we can affect the global pan, volume, tune, resonance, blah, 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 blah. I want to show this to you sort of in action on one instance of Eclipse that I have here. I'm just going to take this out of solo and solo this track, and I am on where? I'm on 13. So I'm going to go down and just make sure that I have 13 here. There we go. So I have a screech effect here. I have some MIDI written in, and listen for what I've done in the sequencer. Okay, do you hear that? I've done some automation here so that it's panning from left to right. And I've changed the number of steps because you can do that very easily by just dragging your mouse up and down in the steps thing. We can go from 2 to 64. And it's going from left to right. And we can change that if we want. If we wanted to go from right to left, we can do that. Seeing this little sort of digit at the bottom, kind of like Pong, goes from right to left instead. We can make it go back and forth. I have 64 steps, so it's going to take forever. We can randomize it. We can do anything. So very tweakable. It's kind of intimidating at first, but I think if you really sit down with it and learn it and explore it, you're going to find this synth very rewarding. I've also got some other things on here, but just so I don't upset Why Blue Sound, I'm not going to talk about them. I just have some guitars, and I have a stock piano from Ableton, and I have some drums. I've got some other stuff, some sort of, swooshy sound effects and all that stuff. Before leaving this video, I want to show you the effects that Eclipse has to offer. And if I go to, where am I here? If I go to number 7, instance 7, we've got this really cool little sub bass sound. And you've heard this a lot, especially in trailers. When a big moment happens, some big crescendo, and then it goes boom. They have that here. And let's just solo that. So when you tuck that underneath other sounds, I think it really complements and adds some drama and tension. There's a few different snapshots or presets here. We've got a sub down 2, and this sounds really cool too. So it's almost like adding some welcome distortion and clipping to the sub down effect. And if I were to open this up and drag this MIDI out further, you can hear that it kind of repeats itself over and over, which I kind of like. I only wanted one quick instance of the sub down effect, but watch what happens when I play this. There's also, I should say, there's some, key switches and all kinds of stuff here in the piano roll, but we're not really going to get into that today. I just wanted to give you a very brief glimpse of what this synth can do, and hopefully I did it justice. I think it's on sale now at the time of this video. It's only got a couple days left, or maybe, even just 1 day left, where they put a nice intro price on it. So they also have a great student discount. They also have amazing customer service. I was having issues downloading this a few nights ago, and it was 2 a.m. on my end. And I guess the other guy was in California, and he was helping me at 2 a.m. So I guess they're like 3 hours behind. So that's really amazing. You don't really get that kind of customer service from a lot of companies. So I want to just say big shout out to Nathan and Geoff. I think the product design, the graphics, everything is really amazing in this synth, and I hope that other companies steal some elements, just the GUI, not anything else, but the GUI from this synth is really terrific, easy to use, very accessible. So congrats to Nathan and Geoff. I love this thing, and hopefully you love it too. Thanks. See you guys later.